Welcome, everyone, to the Ascending Sovereign series. My name is Christine, and it is my honor to be your guide for this amazing journey, which has already begun, which you have activated by your yes, saying yes to diving into this and claiming your power, your freedom, and your love in new ways. When we choose a path of empowerment, it essentially means that that which is disempowered in us has to give up its throne. And that is why we're courageous, because we all have enthroned parts of us that are wounded or that are running as our shadows. So when we choose our power over our wounds and even over our accomplishments, we are stepping into a freedom, an emancipation, and an activation that changes not only us, but the world. So what I see, and I've been looking at this and watching it, is that each of you that are here in this community of this series, you are touch points for change in the planetary and cosmic paradigm. So if you felt a little nervous joining into this series, or if you felt a bit of resistance, there could be good reasons why. All right? You're brave. You're leading the way for yourself first, which naturally creates a most astonishing and brilliant wake for others to be able to follow in that path. So it's a beautiful part of a path of noble service, simply by freeing yourself and empowering yourself. It matters. And it's tremendously wonderful to experience. So we shall share all of that together. Yeah. What's unique about this approach is the combination of that psychology, that information, the power of your heart and divine love, and the energy that comes in and alchemizes both with what we'll share in our class times together and what you bring to it in your own practice. So it becomes a pathway, which is why I called it the Ascending Sovereign. It's a path toward that freedom and emancipation. And it's a pathway that dances with many energies. And it's a pathway where you learn the difference between what you are and what you are not. Or another way to say it, what you are as the whole of what you are, and not limiting yourself to parts of what you are. Because those parts, you'll find, are energy signatures running through you. So some of you have heard me tell this story before. You may know, or you may not. The very first course that I ever taught in consciousness and energy was freedom from your inner critic. And this remains one of my specialties. I can guide people all the way out of their inner critic if they wish, to where it is no longer in their head. So that one I learned through my own experience and practice. And one of the examples I would give in that class and in teaching and guiding since then is when you were born and you were a little baby and you were crying because you were wet or tired or hungry, did you think to yourself, I'm such a bad baby? No, you had no inner critic in that moment. You had pure experience. And you learned the energy of the inner critic through conditioning, programming, experience, wounding, messages that were given to you about if you were good or bad for being a certain way. You learned it. And because you learned it, that means it's optional and not required. It is not essential to your being. It is an energy signature that you've learned to run. So what became clear to me in preparing for this series is that all of the archetypes are as such, including the power archetypes. They are energy signatures that we can learn to run through our system. Or if it's a shadow or something limiting, we can learn not to run it anymore. Because why? These are parts of the whole, and the whole, yes, may include all of those parts, but we are not just the sum of the parts. Then we move into infinite, eternal, all of the things. Okay, so the basic framework for the Ascending Sovereign is that you're going to be learning, what dance have you been dancing with your archetypes? Who are your shadow partners that are always stepping on your toes, tripping you, throwing you under the bus, making you look like a fool? Who are your shadow dancer partners, okay? And who would you like to embody? What energy would you like to choose to balance that out so that you can have a new experience? That's kind of it at the core. So we'll be sharing information about that, and that'll be key. Each session will have, you'll learn. It's really fun. You're going to go, oh, that's my primary dance partner pair. Mine used to be the lover prostitute. I still have aspects of that I run in the shadow. But it's primarily moved into child sovereign now. But I would say, in essence, what I'm mostly running is lover and sovereign. And then I have to play with magician and warrior as needed. And so you will find through this course, oh, that's my primary pair. And you'll know, I'll guide you right to it, because I'll say, well, if you experience a lot of da, 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 your primary power archetype is the lover. That's the one we'll be talking about today. And you'll know. Now, you may recognize pieces in there and go, yeah, I relate to that, or I relate to that. It may be a different one that's primary for you, and we'll get to that in another week, and you'll go, oh yeah, that's the thing I'm in all the time. So I would suggest for your own personal practice that you recognize, first of all, they're all connected, but that you focus on the one that's really lighting up for you as you work it the most deeply. You know, you'll have all the other pieces to play with as we go along. Okay, so we'll give you the information. We're going to be sharing energy. I'm going to be doing a clearing for the shadow that you're running, the one associated with our weekly power archetype. And then also, there will be an activation for the power archetype. We'll talk about frequency completion as a modality that you can work with your shadows and power archetypes. And we'll also be talking about how they are rooted in various energy centers in your body and how you can reroute that. So the energy is a big part of your pathway to your ascending sovereign and your emancipation. You'll learn how to become more skilled with your own energy, okay, in these ways. And then finally, there will be practices. These will include the principles that we cover, but there will be hands-on practices for you to engage with, to strengthen that power archetype, to heal the wounds that have led to the embodiment of the shadow. Okay? So really, really fun. All right. So as I mentioned, archetypes are universal energy signatures. We all can run them. They are existing whether we believe in them or not. It's a little bit like saying, well, I don't believe in elevators. I don't believe that in elevators at all. Well, elevators still go up and down whether you believe in them or not. And this is true with the archetypes. They're there. They're energies that are at play in the world. Okay. And they are each it's such a rich and deep topic, but for the four that we're covering, they're paired as a power and a shadow. So there's a polarity here, yes? And we know that we live in planet polarity. And I invite you to let your polarity be your power. Your polarity is not your problem. Your shadow is not your weakness and your, shame. Your shadow's not your shame. Your polarity is your power, and you need your shadow. It is your guide. You need this shadow, all right? So let the path of your ascending sovereign be like a game. I invite you to let it be like a game, like a really great, thrilling adventure novel series or Netflix series or something. Let it be a game, and here are all the characters playing. And you can begin, and the reason I say this is very intentional, because then you can begin to look at it less personally. If you're watching the show or reading the book, yes, you probably identify more with some characters than others, but you don't for a minute think you're them, do you? You're just like, oh, Those are the people in my show. Okay, so let it be a game so that they can literally be at play within you. You can recognize that, you can make choices about it, and you can learn to play them all if you like. Okay, that's about how we'll be going. So our 4 pairs. Oh, I love these pairs so much. And if you've been with me through the preparation for this journey, you know that we have these 4 pairs. And the three of the pairs lead to the sovereign. It's sort of the crowning experience of those pairs. And interestingly, the sovereign shadow, who is the child, runs through all the other shadows as well. So we're going to be just making our way there. So we're beginning today. I did not know we were beginning with. We have the lover and the prostitute. And we have the magician and the saboteur. We have the warrior and the victim. And the sovereign and the child. Interestingly, the shadow also becomes the route to your total freedom, transformation, emancipation. It's a good thing. I'm going to say that a few times, okay? Why do we have shadows? Shadows to me are not dark. They're distortions of the light. And we have shadows because we've been hurt. It's very simple. Why do you have a shadow? Why are you playing a shadow aspect of your power? Because you've been hurt. And you've learned a way to deal with that and make your way in the world. Okay? It's simple. That's where they come from. Knowing that, does that give you more or less compassion for your shadows? Oh, we say, if you hear the word prostitute, it sounds a little bit rough, yeah? It sounds like, well, who wants to be that? Well, that must be there's some problem with me if I'm a prostitute. No, it means you learned conditional love instead of unconditional. The reason you have the shadows is because you've been hurt, all right? And then we have forged our identity through those wounds, which then also lead us to many accomplishments. Like I became extraordinarily self-sufficient because I had to be, because nobody was there to do that. I had to be the parent, very young. Many of you experienced that as well. Okay, so that kind of wounding of my child became an accomplishment. I could be very self-sufficient, very capable. It's not a bad thing. It's just that it's not my ultimate sovereign power. It's a compensation for a wound. Yeah. Okay, so we forge this identity through wounds and accomplishments, and then we get kind of attached to it. And we think it's who we are. We think, oh no, I really am the self-sufficient person. Oh, I really am this or that. Maybe we look at our human design or our chart or something else and we go, yes, see, this is who I am. I would say those are your propensities to run certain energy signatures. So take a scan of yourself right now and what you know about you, what you think of as your strengths and weaknesses, and just write them down. What are you good at? What do you know that's really strong? And I'm not going to demonize anybody's strengths. We're just going to check and see if they're actually playing heads to the same coin of your tails, which is your shadow. So just make a little note. Well, here's what I think of as my qualities that are strong and good, and they may just be straight up wonderful things. And here are the things that I think, oh, here's kind of where my patterns are, or my hooks. I call them hooks. So just start making some notes of that so that you're engaged with this conversation, that you're thinking about yourself and also everybody in your world who shows up and kind of shows you these. You can do it this way too. Believe me, you can play and learn about your shadows and empower archetypes through yourself or through what you encounter in the world around you. You'll see it both places. Okay. So just kind of notice that. And I would suggest that each of those things is an archetypal energy of some sort. It's a quality. It's another way to say it. A characteristic. And they're energies that you have hosted for a long time. Like, so for me, I used to be And I still have remnants of this, a people pleaser or a conflictor avoider or that kind of thing. So I hosted that energy for a long time. Why? Oh, I learned if I didn't keep people happy, I didn't get where I wanted to go, or I wasn't included, or I wasn't loved, or I wasn't approved of, or whatever, all the things. So I learned to host keeping people happy. I learned to host that energy. I learned to run it through my system. And then it kind of became part of what feels like Christine. Christine is kind of the person who keeps people happy, doesn't rock the boat, blah, blah, blah. That shadow became part of my identity. But I would suggest to you, it's simply an energy that you're good at running. Stop for just a moment and go, oh, all of these things I'm listing, my strengths, my propensities toward weird patterns or distortion or conditional this or that, these are not me. These are energies that I'm good at hosting. Quick question, does that feel different than saying I'm a people pleaser? To say, oh, I'm good at hosting the people pleasing energy. It and I are well acquainted. It knows all its way through my body, which is its house. And it can go here and here, and it can run in this and that way. And it can, it can even take over the show because I've been hosting it for so long. It practically lives here. So it just feels at home and runs the show. But it's not who you are. This energy of self-sufficiency, I am well versed at hosting. This energy of doubting myself, I'm well versed at hosting. This energy of thinking that other people know more than I do. Always, somebody else is more of an expert or more accomplished, or I'm good at hosting that. Okay? And I invite you to let go of this language of, oh yes, I'm a this, or I'm a that, or I'm good at hosting. I'm what's that word I'm looking for? Not efficient, but you know the word. I'm good at it. All right. Proficient. That's it. Okay. So it's not us. It's parts of all the characters, and we're used to playing certain ones. Okay. So what we're going for here is what I call the ace. Okay. So even the sovereigns are kings and queens. They're in charge and they're self-sovereign. But the ace trumps the king and queen, yes? The ace is the highest card. And what's the number of ace? 1, yes? Yeah, thank you. And for me, that's the number of unity. That's the number of all. That's the number of our wholeness, is the ace. So even our sovereign, what it leads us to is our wholeness. And then we can live sovereign in our lives. Oh, such a beautiful energy. Oh, so good. And that means we're strong in our love, and we're strong in our magic, and we're strong in our strength and our warrior energy of peace and of capability. And ultimately, we're living the wholeness of what we are. We're in our ace. So anytime that we're looking at any of these energies, they're part of your deck. Okay? And in a sense, we have one thing that includes the whole deck, and that we'll just call it our cosmic ace. Okay? Your cosmic ace is all of you. All of what you can play in this lifetime, all of what you can master, all that you choose to explore and be with and be aware of and change and all that stuff. That's your cosmic ace. And none of the other pieces define you or are you in terms of identification. I am not my prostitute. I am not my saboteur. I can host these energies. I'm choosing my cosmic ace. Oh, I gave myself a thumbs up. I love it when that happens. So to do our cosmic ace. Thankfully, this just showed itself to me just this morning when my cat, Sir Charles Joseph Allendale, the true sovereign of my house, was having his chaperoned promenade. He has to be chaperoned even though he's the king because there's another tomcat who thinks he's king. So we're out having our morning promenade time. I'm just watching him walk around and all the downloads are coming in. I was like, oh my God, it really is. We have to have the awareness of what's running through us. Dang it. We have to know. Oh my God, I just spoke to that person from my prostitute. I just did this weird people-pleasing thing or I just spoke to them from my victim, which means I didn't say what I meant, and I said yes when I meant no, and I didn't listen to my knowing, and okay, we get to have awareness of all of this, and then we get to make choices. And to do that, we need new energy, and we need to see how and what energy is running our bodies. Awareness, choice, energy, you got your ace. Okay, so I've mapped out your route even right there. You can just remember your ace and you're like, hang on, which piece do I need to look at right now? Do I need to be aware? Do I need to choose? Do I need to do some energy work? This will be your formula for ascending into your sovereign. All right, your ace. It's a good one. I was like, thank you, everybody. Okay, so what I want for you to know is that each of us with our shadows will have hooks. We'll have hooks where we're like, actually, I just can't do that thing. I can't speak my truth. I can't be hopeful. I can't stand up for myself in that way. Or I just can't do it. I can't. Okay, that's the child. We'll have a hook that will get us and want to drag us down by the ankles. All right. So just so you know, your hook is your sneakiest part. And each of these shadows has their hook, and you're going to find your primary one, and I'm going to guide you to it. Because you find where your hook is by what would happen if I didn't do this pattern the way I normally do. If I didn't keep this person happy, if I didn't, if I spoke my truth, if I made a choice that offends somebody, if I believe in my magic, you'll find that by moving away from your hook, you're like, well, if I don't stay with my pattern, here's the really bad thing that's going to happen. So from what you've already noticed about strengths, weaknesses, patterns, just start thinking, well, yeah, like if I was a child and say I had these alcoholic, abusive parents, if I spoke up, I would get hit. It's not rocket science, is it? So you learn really effectively, don't do that because it does not work out for you. That's what I mean by the hook. Your hook is your most direct path to your transformation. Your hook is your freaking friend, all right? Your hook is your golden key to the gateway of transformation. Because when you are free from your hook, you are free. Let it guide you there. Now, it may feel terrifying and to the point that you feel like you'll die if you go against your hook. I did. I was like, I can't. Okay, a story. So back in the days of the strong prostitute lover archetype, going through a divorce, could not speak my truth to my alcoholic husband, could not go against what he wanted, could not do it, did not work out for me to live my truth. So he wants me to move out of the house so that when he's there on the weekends, he wants me to go rent a second place that I go to on the weekends so that he can have time with the children that's just his. And that seems fair to me, right? Well, I'm with them all week. He's now working out of town. He comes home on the weekends. Fair enough that he can have time with the kids in his own house without me here. So I go get an apartment. I didn't want to. He asked my own father for money to pay for the apartment, and my father sent the money. So what was I going to say? So I go get this shitty little apartment in this horrible neighborhood where this man literally comes knocking on my door thinking I'm a prostitute. Ha ha, you cannot make this stuff up. I'm telling you, I was running the prostitute energy and the dude's like, Okay. So now I'm meeting with my attorney. And he's like, Christine, you have to move back into your house right now. You cannot have this apartment. I was like, no, I can't do that. Why? And I said, well, no, I mean, he'll be so angry at me. And he goes, so will he harm you? I said, well, I don't think so. Then get your ass back in your house. I was like, I can't do it. And everything in me was just saying, I can't. Because I had learned that to speak up in the face of that pattern meant I'd be annihilated because it was my child prostitute speaking right then. She did not have it in her yet to stand on her own 2 feet. And he literally forced me to do it. He goes, I'm sorry, this isn't about you. This is about your children, because the court's going to look at who is spending literally the most hours in the residence with the children. And you need it to be a no-brainer, which means you have to be there all the time if you want to have custody of your children. So you're not leaving your home. It's for your kids. And then I was like, okay, I'll do it for my kids. And it felt like I was going to die. And sure enough, that person came at me so angry. And everything in me felt like I was going to die from that. It was very real. I didn't die because I had to stand up to that shadow right then and there, because Mama Bear came in, that was a stronger archetype in me, was, okay, I'll do it for my kids. But it may feel like that when you really face your hook. Because when it came at you for the first time, the place where you learned the hook, you didn't have a choice. You were little. I guarantee you were little. Vulnerable. We're going to route the healing for that too.